very, a very good afternoon to you, and welcome to St Martin the Fields. A special welcome to those joining us online. Welcome to great sacred music. Today we're reflecting on the father of English hymnody. At the Reformation, there had, of course, been hymns in Latin in the West since the early church, but after the Reformation, Protestants really began from scratch in working out what a hymn was. And there were two schools of thought. Calvin was of the view that we just sing parts of the Bible, and we set them to verses, metrical psalms, and so on, and we stick to what's in the Bible, and we can't go wrong. It may help God, but what it really does is it reminds us, it helps us learn the words of the Scriptures. Luther took a different view, a more theological view, where hymns were really for teaching the faith and exploring some of the mysteries of the more complex parts of Christian doctrine. The nonconformist Isaac Watts came along in the early 18th century, very much taking more Luther's approach. He is known for his ability to articulate the principles of Christian faith very succinctly, compellingly, and memorably, but he added an extra dimension, which was the heart and soul. His words are genuinely moving and memorable, which added a whole new dimension to hymn singing, and we are the better for it. He had a conversation with his father when he was 17, when he complained about the hymns that were available at the time, and his father said, well, go and write a better one. And he brought it back the next day, and 750 hymns later, he became perhaps the most significant English hymn writer of them all. So well done, Dad. He was nonconformist, as I said, so he couldn't study at Oxford or Cambridge. He went in 1690 at the age of 16 to the Dissenting Academy at Stoke Newington, which was then a village east of London. We're going to begin, as we always do, by singing a hymn together, which you can find on the inside of the leaflets that I hope you picked up on the way in. If you didn't pick one up, there's still quite a few at the back of the aisle. We're going to sing a hymn which is a great encouragement to us. It's often said of prayer that prayer is joining the praise of God by the angels, which is going on all the time. It makes it much easier to pray if you feel the angels are doing most of the hard yards. And the same is true in this hymn for singing. If you say, well, I'm not much of a singer, but I do like to hear the voices, well, you don't need to say that, because this hymn is reminding us that singing is simply joining in the song that the angels sing to God all the time. So I hope that's some encouragement to you. Some of you, of course, need no encouragement. But we remain seated, the voices stand and lead us as we sing, Come, Let Us Join Our Cheerful Songs. Now, we're going to hear two contemporary settings of Watts's hymns. The first by Cecilia McDowell, a great friend of St. Martin in the Fields. Her setting of Watts's Cradle hymn was first performed 5 years ago in 2019. And appropriately for a cradle hymn, it's a mixture of tender harmonies and a sense of gentle rocking all the way through. The hymn was first published in Watts's 1706 book, Moral Songs, not a name that you'd probably use today, at the conclusion of Songs for Children. Then we're going to hear a hymn that has a very special resonance here at St. Martin's, Give Us the Wings of Faith. Watts takes the Hebrews chapter 6 description of the veil that shields heaven from our earthly eyes, and he turns it into a fervent prayer that we might be given the wings of faith to rise within that veil and see the life of the saints who once dwelt as we do with sins and doubts and fears, but now are surrounded by joys and glories. It's special at St. Martin's because since the foundation of the Nazareth community, an intentional community for people just like you and me, searching for a deeper faith, which now has about 250 or more members. This anthem has been sung at the induction of every single member of the Nazareth community over the last 6 years. So it's quite a signature tune for the Nazareth community. Let's enjoy these two pieces together now. Now, Isaac Watts's best known hymn is one we're about to hear in a few moments, When I Survey the Wondrous Cross. It looks like a hymn about what Christ does for us on the cross, but actually it's really about how Christ's example changes my own life. And you can tell that from the fact that it's a 16-line hymn, but the words me, my, and I occur 12 times in those 16 lines. It's very much about me, but its significance is probably epitomized in the fact that on Good Friday, despite all the theological differences about what takes place on the cross across the Christian church, this hymn will probably be sung in every single church. So whatever theology, everybody loves this hymn. Perhaps the most poignant line in the hymn, did e'er such love and sorrow meet? Christianity is the recognition that true love must face untold sorrow if it is to be embodied in everlasting companionship. And then an interesting hymn, I Sing the Mighty Power of God, which was published in Watts's edition of Divine Songs Attempted in Easy Language for the Use of Children. They really had snappy book titles for hymns in those days. 1715, it was enormously influential. He was the sort of Mrs. C.F. Alexander of the 18th century, if you remember. Her hymns, including All Things Bright and Beautiful, dominated the 19th century. Well, this book dominated the 18th century, went through hundreds of editions, so much so that when William Blake sat down to write his Songs of Innocence, he was really writing a corrective to the theology of Isaac Watts. It's a very 18th century theology, and only one song from the whole collection has made it through to 2024 to be widely sung today, and it's the one we're going to hear in a few moments' time after When I Survey. But it is actually a beautifully crafted hymn responding to creation in three dimensions. Firstly, admiration, then gratitude, and then finally, a renewed awareness of God. Well, it's time for us all to sing again. And this is another Isaac Watts classic. He stands the test of time, 300 years, because he doesn't fall into the traps that many hymn writers do. Unlike many contemporary songwriters, he doesn't just talk about me and my feelings, although When I Survey is possibly an exception. Unlike some Victorian writers, he doesn't collapse the gospel into social improvement. And in this hymn, he speaks of the universality of the gospel without falling into a colonial mindset. He looks forward to a day when Jesus' kingdom stretches from shore to shore until there is endless day, and prayer is continuous, and those of every tongue sing in sweet harmony, and prisoners, the weary and the suffering, are transported to comfort, light, and peace. It's a comprehensive vision, but it's clearly about God, not our own aggrandizement, and it doesn't have any illusions about recasting God's kingdom in our own image. We remain seated, and the voices stand to lead us as we sing Jesus Shall Reign Where'er the Sun. Well, we're coming towards the end of Great Sacred Music for this week. I hope you've enjoyed yourself. If you have, there's an opportunity to make a donation in the retiring collection as you leave. And if you say, I've only brought cash, you can leave all your cash with us. And if you say, I've only brought a card, we can accommodate you too. You just switch the setting on the machine to all my worldly wealth, and we'll take it from you. Now, why is Isaac Watts so significant? Well, he transformed the notion of hymnody from something frankly quite dreary into something that's at the very heart of the faith. I often say that preachers think that people come to church to hear sermons, but the truth is that people come to church to pray and to sing hymns. And when you sing hymns like Isaac Watts, what you're doing is singing a prayer that has become a hymn. As Augustine, the great theologian, said, the one who sings prays twice. And that's absolutely the case with singing Isaac Watts' hymns. So even though some of his hymns have some rather quaint lines, for example, The one we're about to hear, which starts, "Alas, and did my Saviour bleed," did originally go on, "For such a worm as I." Now, that's not really the kind of language we use these days, and it's been turned in this version to "And did my sovereign die," which sort of sits a bit more comfortably on the soul. Even though he's got some quaint 300-year-old expressions, he is still peerless as a hymn writer in the English language. Thanks for joining us.